some new coaches and new places. Let's start out with Houston. All right. Houston got their guy. Demeco Ryan finally comes home to Houston. He is there. He is a perfect fit for them. He played there, obviously, a big time, name in Houston. Played there with J.J. Watt. He's been there for a little bit. Obviously, he's been a great coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. He could have potentially been a coaching candidate, head coach candidate last year, but ended up waiting a year, and now he gets to inherit this Houston Texans team that he has a lot of work to do, Scotty. There's a lot, but he has a lot of resources to do it too. So let's start out with this one real quick, because we're going to spend a lot of time on the Denver one, the Denver hire. But what are your thoughts on how he fits in Houston and what he's got to work with down there?
I think it makes a ton of sense. I love this hire for Houston. I think obviously they're coming off 2 straight years of having a coach that was in the position for 1 year. They're like seeing Denver do a 1-year thing, and they're like, no, we'll up it. We'll do 2 straight years of one and done in our coach. Now you bring in a first-time head coach, a youthful guy that'll bring energy. Nothing against, the guys they've had in there like Lovie Smith, but Lovie Smith's not exactly an energy guy. And I feel like, they're going to have a young team. They're going to build through the draft. I fully expect will probably attempt at least to get a quarterback with that. Right now, they're sitting at number 2 in the draft pick. The appeal of getting to build your team and grow with it together, because, it was obviously reported that Denver was pretty interested in Demeco as well. And that Demeco wanted to go with Houston. Now, obviously, he played some career there, so there's ties there and whatever that may be. And maybe he just preferred a team where he can kind of build, whereas in Denver, you're kind of trying to fix what's kind of been broken, but you don't have the assets to change a lot. So I like Demeco Ryans. I thought he did obviously a great job, defensive coordinator the last couple of years for the Niners after he had to replace Robert Saleh, who now is the head coach in New York. So apparently that's, if you want like a head coaching job, just be the defensive coordinator in San Fran. Yeah. But no, I love the hire. I think they finally got a guy that, fits where they're at, and kind of this is gonna be a long process. They're not close to being competitive yet, but he's the guy that can be there, build it up, and if you give him a fair chance, which I think they will, I think eventually they'll be happy with this hire.
Yeah, I think he definitely is a better fit in Houston. I think that. And I'll get to this in a little bit. I'll dive a little bit deeper into the Broncos chaos leading up to this, because they were doing last-minute interviews with last-minute calls to a couple dudes, including Ryans and including Harbaugh, and it sounded like they were scrambling. I'll get to the desperation in a minute. But, I mean, for me, it didn't make it. It's a better fit in Houston than it would have been in Denver. Denver, you need somebody, and we got the right person. Well, again, touch on this in a second. You got the guy that's going to be offensive-minded, helping a quarterback be successful. And Demeco Ryans isn't that guy. He's a first-time coach, defensive-minded. Does he look at the offensive side of football? Yeah, but that's not his focus. That's not what his specialty is. That's not what he is known to be, quarterback whisperer and offensive play.
He's no Nathaniel Hackett, Chris.
He's no Nathaniel Hackett. True. I mean, true. I didn't think it was going to be a good fit as much as it would have, as much as it is in Houston. So that being said, happy for him. He's got a nice gig down there. He's got some assets to work with to try to build things up. He's got a longer road ahead of him, because Houston, they got to find a quarterback. They got to figure out if they're gonna draft one. Obviously, that the draft, the first 2 picks are gonna be, those have shifted a little bit, and what we thought was gonna happen and what is happening. But there's teams willing to move up and trade up to get some of these, so they got to be careful of that too. So there's gonna be some time before they can turn that ship around. Anyways. The bigger news of the same day was the fact that the Broncos ended up pulling the trigger and bringing in Sean Payton. Obviously, Sean Payton was the favorite to come to Denver when he initially announced that he was, going to be throwing his hat in the ring to go do this again. Odds on were in Vegas were the fact that Denver was going to get him. Then you kind of had the other interviews that took place. You had the Harbaugh, you had the Demeco Ryans, you had, a bunch of others that came through that they were interested in highly. But then all of a sudden you got radio silence, Scotty. It went coach after coach after coach. The domino started falling as soon as Reich got hired in Carolina. All of a sudden, things started falling into place with other teams. And all of a sudden, the Broncos find out that Harbaugh's going back to Michigan. They got Demeco Ryan is someone who they really wanted. Ends up saying, oh, yeah, I'd rather go to Houston. At this point, the Broncos had no other choice. And the desperation set in with the Penners and the ownership saying, we can't go in to this season with anybody else that doesn't make a splash. Because how we finished last season with what we did with Russ and coming in with anybody less than Sean Payton is going to be a disappointing offseason, and nobody can get behind that moving forward. So what did they do? They gave up some draft capital to get him. So they gave up a first rounder and a second rounder, and then they got in return Sean Payton and a third rounder. So they got something back, which is kind of nice, but the Broncos have basically traded 3 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, and 3 players for Russ and Payton. Scotty. And the bigger issue is the whole Russ thing. The Russ thing is what's really making us have to go through all of these hoops now. But that all being said, we have a guy that if anybody can do it, Scotty, it's going to be Sean Payton. He's an offensive-minded coach. He's a QB whisperer. I mean, he took Drew Brees to the Super Bowl. Teddy Bridgewater was 5-1 under him. Jameis Winston was 5-2 under him. Taysom Hill had success. Taysom Hill had success under Payton. And Taysom Hill's not even a quarterback. So if there's if there's one guy that could come in, clean house, and put together a situation for Russ to help him succeed, I like Sean Payton to do that. He's got some talent around him. You got Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick. You got our little stable of tight ends that seems to be, pretty good, right? So with that being said, I mean, Sean Payton put together some pretty good running backs over there too. Javonte Williams coming off an injury, I get that. Could be in line for a nice little fantasy year coming up with how Sean Payton likes to use running backs in the system, especially how they did it down there in New Orleans. I just think that overall, this is the only move that you could have made if you're the ownership of the Broncos. And if you're, otherwise, you can't go with a first-time head coach because that hasn't gone well for us.
You can have Bieniemy.
We don't want Bieniemy. You've gotten rid of my Bieniemy hype like a year and a half ago. I was like, oh, he could be good, and then you kind of said he's not the guy. But real quick in the chat, and Cornhusker, that means Russell Wilson is very expensive to trade for and fix. Yep. 100%. Denver had to have no other choices to force them to hire the right guy. True, Chairman. It was desperation. That's all it was. And I was concerned that they were going to be giving up the farm for him, and they kind of gave up, but they got something back with another pick, so that's could be worse. This is the only move left. What's worse than last resort? I mean, if the last resort is Sean Payton, I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, let me say this. I think Sean Payton is a good hire. I think he's obviously a good football coach. He'll bring some stability and some structure, which was very much lacking under Hackett to this organization and this team. But this was such an embarrassing process for them.
It was
if Sean Payton was the guy from the start, and he was your guy, no one would blink an eye on you giving up a first round and a second round pick for him, because that's your guy. And if that's the coach you want, you don't think about those draft picks. You go and get him.
Yeah. He
wasn't their guy. He wasn't their number 2 guy. What? And then all of a sudden, and then everyone else they interviewed already decided like they're going back to their coordinator positions, like Dan Quinn. They didn't interview this year, but last year, John Gannon, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, basically said he's going back. Like, they bungled this so badly by the, I think this new ownership group's just not used to being told no, Chris.
Yeah.
And so they thought, we'll get Harbaugh.
Well, Harbaugh's
our guy, we'll get him. And then Harbaugh's like, to the point that they flew out themselves to see Harbaugh in Ann Arbor last week.
Weird.
And Harbaugh still rebuffed him.
Weird.
And then they're on Demeco Ryans, and there was weird reports out yesterday, Chris. There was not fights, but there was discrepancies between what Adam Schefter was reporting and what Rappaport was reporting, right? Because one was saying that Denver, even as of yesterday, was calling multiple times to Demeco Ryans to try and get him to change his mind. And Schefter is saying, no, that's, Denver hasn't spoke to Demeco at all this week. They haven't tried to contact him. They decided to move with Sean Payton and move on that and get it done. I don't know who to believe, Chris. I'm not saying who's right or wrong, but one side of this has a lot more of a reason to lie than the other.
Yeah, true.
But the people that need to lie are the Denver Broncos. It's not a good look if you're contacting another coach begging him to come coach you, and then that same day you have to give up a first and second round pick for the coach you didn't want. So that's all I'm saying with it. Listen, ultimately, you're right. This will be good to see, all right, is Russ cooked, or can he... Obviously, he's on the down, he's not climbing. He's on the downturn of his career, but can he be average even? Like, he wasn't average last year. He was a bottom 6 quarterback probably in the league. And can he get back to at least being functional and make this offense average more than 16 points per game? I keep seeing Denver reporters saying, and if they'll figure it out in this next year, and if not, then they'll release Wilson and just deal with his dead cap money. Chris, do you know what his dead cap money is if they release him after this year?
It's substantial.
It's $81 million.
Yeah.
You can't have $81 million in dead cap to one guy on your team.
No, you can't.
It's absolutely insane that there's people in Denver saying this.
Well, and I think I told you, and I think I said on stream that there were people that did the math on if you restructure these 5 or 6 players, if you cut these 7 or 8 players, if you do all this, then you only have a dead cap hit, or you've restructured enough to where it's only 40 million next year instead of 80. And it's like, still, that's a bad situation. You have to restructure and change everything of your own roster. But what's crazy about this too is the fact that, like, I think the ownership wanted to get a deal. They didn't want to give up draft capital, which is why they were like, I don't have to give up draft capital with Demeco Ryans, with Harbaugh. I could just pay those dudes. And they were trying to figure out a way to keep the draft capital and get a decent coach. And when those didn't happen, then they're like, well, shit, now we got to pay up. All right, hey, what's up, Sean? How's it going? And enter Sean Payton. But it's just like, again, it's an embarrassing process of what they had to go through to get to this point. There was even Schefter, talking about Schefter, he had a point where he did an interview with NFL.com when they were kind of breaking down some of the things, and he was like, yeah, this week, Sean Payton, I don't know if you heard this Sean Payton had an orange tie in one of his in his Colin Cowherd interview, and that was his sign to the Denver Broncos ownership that he was meant to be a Bronco, and the Broncos called, right? I was like, what is this? What are we doing here? Like,
he was meant to be a Bronco because the owners are willing to pay him like $20 million a year.
Yeah, I think the deal was $85 million over 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. Is that? I think that's what I saw reported.
I didn't see an official thing. So what is that? That's like 18-ish.
Yeah,
17 year?
Vic Lombardi locally posted that. He said sources say it's 85 million over 5 years. So, yeah, it's up there.
Which a lot of people out here are like, I don't care what you pay the coach, and that's true. What you pay the coach, that doesn't go against the salary
There's no
cap. So that, as a fan, you could care less what you're paying the coach.
It's not my money.
Right?
It's
as
not.
long as the owners want to pay that, whatever. So that's fine. But the idea of getting out of 81 million in dead cap, which would be about a third of your salary cap, is laughable. Laughable.
But last, we talked about this in the beginning where we were kind of going through Twitter and we saw Shannon Sharp was talking a little bit about this, but the last 3 coaches that were acquired via draft picks, Scotty, John Gruden was acquired for 2 first rounders. Oh, yeah, that was expensive. 2 first rounders, 2 second rounders.
Totally worth it.
Totally worth it. Won a Super Bowl and that was it. But hey, it was
no. I think
that was
when
Chris is right.
Yeah,
Chris is right. He won the Super Bowl against his former team as well.
Yeah.
That's right.
Then you had Belichick. He was acquired a first, a fourth, and a seventh, and we all know what happened in New England. And then there was
wait, what was that trade?
I don't recall.
That was
he wasn't with his only other coaching gig was with the Browns, and he did not.
That was when the Jets, after Parcells left, the Jets hired Belichick. He resigned one day later on the paper.
The Patriots sent a first round pick in the 2000 NFL draft to the Jets for the rights to hire Belichick.
I did not know that.
And then
he was sorry.
No. And then the only other one was Mike Holmgren. Seattle sent picks to Green Bay, and then Mike Holmgren ended up going and having success. Which, yeah.
He made was he their coach when they made a Super Bowl with Hasselbeck back in the day?
Correct.
Lost to the
I
Steelers.
don't think so. Maybe. I'll check. I don't think so though.
Yeah, go check that out for us, Rec. I think he was, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check.
It was Holmgren versus Cowher.
Yeah. So that was it. So 3 for 3, Scotty. When you trade for a coach, it ends up working out pretty good. So not to say that the Broncos are going to win a Super Bowl or anything, but hey, it's better than any coaching. Because what do we talk about, Scotty, every year? What do you need to have? 2 things that'll help you win over any other team. One is a quarterback, and the other is a
great
coach. So if we can knock out one of those and only focus on one other aspect of it, we have some time to do so. So I'm excited here in Denver about what this means. We still have a decently talented team. I mean, we have a more talented team than Houston at this point, right? I mean, like if we're talking about like jobs and like the talent that's here in Denver, the defense that we've had, there's going to be some restructuring and some different things that are happening in the offseason. So that's going to be playing a role. But I mean, Sean Payton's going to know some dudes that are going to come over here and cut through free agency, is going to be attractive. There might be some things that we have a little bit of salary cap to work with, but I love the move. I love it.
All right. Yeah. I mean, the issue with you moving forward is you're going to have 2 straight years of drafts where you basically get nothing.
I know.
Like just not really any contributions. And that's devastating when you're paying a quarterback a lot of money. If they had a quarterback on a cheap deal, then you can still build out your roster and free agency and stuff like that. But when you're paying $50 million, you have to, as I was talking about earlier, you have to build through the draft some. You have to. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But yeah, I mean, he's a good coach. So overall, if that's it, when you just cut it down to that, it's a good hire.
Let's see. Rec. Conspiracy theory. Broncos paid Schefter to lie and say they're not begging for Ryans. Please don't make us look desperate.
I mean, he was obviously from Denver. So
yeah. That's what Cuban says later on.
So like,
he's got Denver ties.
So if they asked him to cover the tracks on that one, he would do it. With the probably a promise on the other end that you keep feeding me information first for your team.
Andy Reid at $12 million. Yeah, he's 1,000% coach of the Seahawks. Should have been, yes, that was peak Sean Alexander era. Alexander was a beast. Broncos are now officially favorites to be mentioned at the Super Bowl. Yeah. Well, we might get a little bit of a. I don't, maybe. I don't know what prop I'm going to get that on. If I don't know what FanDuel definitely won't have that prop. Vote the poll, guys. Vote the poll. Was the Denver trade good for Peyton? Was it? Would you approve of that trade? Let's see. Schefter gets his stories directly from NFL teams. I believe Rappaport's reporting.
He's got connections to teams as well, but maybe it's a little more. You got teams, you have agents, you have a lot of connections that you try and build. So, yeah, I don't know who their connections are necessarily, but
vote in the chat. Was the Peyton trade good for Denver? Yeah, 3 yes, 2 no. There's a lot more of you than 5 people. Vote.
You know who it was really good for?
Saints.
The Saints.
Really
good for the Saints.
Yeah.
Dude's not going to coach anyway, and you get a first and a second rounder and give back a third. So
they got a great deal. Yeah.
No brainer for them, because they traded away their first rounder this year, so they didn't have one because they moved up for Olave last year in the draft. So